I'm very happy to have a very special speaker on stage today for the very first time in Finland, so make sure that you give him a really warm welcome. He and his team out of Germany spent a lot of time conducting in-depth research in the data area. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome up on stage CEO and founder of the BARC Institute in Germany, Dr. Carsten Bange.
Thank you for this very warm welcome. And I have to tell you, it's really a pleasure to be in Helsinki with this nice sunshine. So that's really, really great. And today the topic is also super important, data culture. And typically I'm invited to talk about AI a lot. As Christoph said, AI is the topic of the year, like last year. And I give you another reason why we shouldn't talk only about AI, because this is a simple prompt. I ask it, visualize how data culture eats data strategy for breakfast. And you see it's all crappy. So there's so many mistakes in here. That's another reason we shouldn't talk only about AI, because it still doesn't really work in many cases. Admittedly, the newest model did a much better job here. You see it got the letters right and so on. So I thought obviously there's some advancements. But there's one more reason we shouldn't only talk about AI. And this is in the trends we see in the market, but from a user perspective. Chris already said we are technology analysts, so our job is to observe the trends. So we look at what's happening in the market with the vendors, with the user communities. We run lots of surveys. And it's also our job, once per year, typically to the end of the year, we predict what are the big trends for 2025. And as an analyst, obviously, we'll do that. But we also have a unique piece of research that is asking the users what trends they find interesting. And surprisingly, the results are often completely different. So people that work with technology often think that things are important that many others, like media, analysts, vendors, think maybe are not so important. So I want to show you the results of that piece of research. It's super new. It's actually not published yet. So you're the first ones to actually see it. Then I want to answer this question, what is data culture? Because it's not so clear. And then I would like to introduce the answer to the question, what can you actually do about it? Because that's also not so clear. Let's start with the user trends. And here we have a really interesting and unique piece of research. We call it the Data BI and Analytics Trend Monitor. And we run that every year. And it's a study of almost 1,800 participants from around the world. So pretty broad base, a lot of data, which I think gives us a pretty good view on the market. And just to highlight one thing here, it's primarily users of technology that are answering here. And this study is super simple. It's only one question. We ask, okay, please rate the importance of these trends we give to you. So we have a list of 20 trends. Please rate them 0 to 10. 10 is super important. And then we also have the demographics of the people that answer. So we can also slice and dice it. But let's just concentrate on this one question. And to not waste too much time, I just give you the answer right away. So this is how it turned out. And I just would like to ask you to not publish it, because it takes about still 4 weeks until we publish the study. But obviously you can use it, you can have it, you can share it internally with your people, but please just don't put it out in the open, like LinkedIn, whatever you want to do. But this is the result. And maybe it's a bit surprising, because if you would ask someone or anyone, they would say, hey, AI is the big topic, isn't it? Isn't that something that everyone finds super important right away? But if you look at it, AI is only somewhere in the upper part of the middle here, and it's not the number one topic. And that's the other answer to the question why I'm not talking about AI today, because obviously there are other important and actually more important topics, at least to people that are having to use technology every day. Let's take a look at the results here. First of all, we have two clear leaders. You see with ADE, that's almost everyone said this is super important for us. And they also differentiate a little bit from the rest. So they are clear leaders. And that's data security and privacy and data quality management. Who would have guessed that? I mean, we are talking about data quality for, 40 years, since maybe we crunch data in computers. That always has been the problem. But obviously, it's the big topic. It's the important topic that people are really concerned about. And for me, this is like an expression of a movement or a paradigm shift in a way that we are seeing. And that is that we see that data is now really becoming an asset for companies. Yeah, if you think about data strategies becoming data-driven as an imperative for many companies now, then you have to start to also treat data as an asset. Yeah? And often, at least before, often it's only been seen as a burden. Yeah, something that's troubling. First of all, it creates a lot of cost. Yeah? You have to store it somewhere that's expensive. And then you get in trouble if you, for example, don't treat the personal data of people right. So it's a lot of problems around data. But you have to really move away from that and move into a world where data is an asset, and you have to treat it like that. So caring for the security of an asset that is really secure in your company, it's not leaving it, no one can have any breaches and so on. Privacy is protected, definitely important, but also the quality of an asset will determine its value in the end. I think that's the important thing we are seeing. And then we see two runner-ups here, another two topics that stand out a little bit, and see that data-driven culture comes in number 3 here. Yeah, significantly more important than AI, which I find quite interesting here, including data governance, which is actually quite related to the topic. So if you would, let's say, summarize the results of this study in a very simple way and would think about what are the priorities now for companies, especially users of data and analytics, then it's pretty clear number 1 is the data foundation. That's the most important thing, and I couldn't agree more. Yeah, this is something you really have to take care of. But then number 2 is people. Yeah, you have to take care about the people side of things. So it's the culture that is in the company. It's the governance, so how do you treat this? Yeah, how much would you take on policies and things like that? Literacy, how do you educate your people? And also self-service is a topic that's really into working with people, giving them more flexibility, more independence, and so on. And then we have a bunch of technology topics, but they're really number 3. Yeah, it's not the most important thing if people work with data and analytics, what they're really concerned about. And I think we should keep that in mind. And my talk today will be really about data culture, because I see this as a success factor, something that really drives benefits forward in your company. So basically, we see a shift in attention from data technology, which has dominated, obviously, the data space for a long time, to data culture. So looking also at the people side of things and how they actually use technology. And what can we do to help them use technology in the way that it's actually beneficial, so that it actually pays into our data strategy, our company strategy that says, hey, we want to use data more. We want to gain value from data. So that's the big shift we are seeing here. But what's that? Data culture. It's a bit of a fuzzy term. I completely agree to that. So I'll try to put in some more information here, some more data that helps us to understand it. And first of all, I would like to see how data culture fits in. And I would like to start with this picture. Not only because I'm from Germany, it's a German car, but it's something that I think that's very representative of how data strategies are built today. Yeah, and what are 2 main properties of this car? Yeah, first of all, it's excellently engineered, so it's technology. It's a strong engine. There's a lot of technology in here, and that's what I see is often the main part of a data strategy. Obviously, technology is important, but then there's a second thing. It's a shiny, which may say toy, but it's a shiny car. Yeah? So you have shiny use cases in our data strategy. Yeah? The interesting, the fun stuff, the things that shine out, where people think they can create lots of value for the company with use cases. But then something happens. Yeah, we saw so many of these data strategies. Yeah, very nice slides. Sometimes, from these management consultancies, that really know how to do slides. But then, you look into it, and then something happens. Yeah, then this car, this data strategy, hits the road. So it hits the reality of a company. Yeah, and then suddenly, many people realize, oh, this doesn't work. Yeah, because something is missing here. That's actually the foundation on which this data strategy can actually run. So what's creating all these bumps in this road? Well, what's the problem here why we cannot drive our data strategy often in companies? There are many factors. Data quality would be one. But then if we think about it, actually, and that's my statement here, is if you think about the biggest threat to your data strategy, what's the biggest thing that would actually prevent your data strategy from being able to drive and really move forward, accelerate your data and analytics in the organization? And I think it's data culture. Yeah. And this, maybe you know it, yeah, it's been attributed to Peter Drucker. Probably he never said that, but anyway, yeah, this is in the management literature, you find the saying, culture eats strategy for breakfast. Yeah? So you can have the best business strategy. If your company culture doesn't fit to it, yeah, it will never execute, it will never happen. And so I think the same is true for data. Yeah? If your data culture is not strong, positive, it's not supportive of your data strategy, this data strategy will never happen. Yeah, it will be basically being eaten for breakfast. And if you have children, you will know what happens to these pancakes. Yeah? It takes maybe 10 seconds, and they're gone. Yeah? And this is exactly what happens to many of these glossy data strategies that I have seen. Yeah? They hit the reality in the company, and it's simply not working at all. Yeah? People are not ready for data. People are not skilled enough. You don't even have enough people, yeah, to put all these use cases into effect, and so on and so on. So data culture, I think, is the biggest threat to any data strategy, and that's why it's so important to actually look at it. Now, what is it? Yeah, let me give you one definition here. It's a set of values, beliefs, and behaviors. Yeah, and this is actually culture. And this is what makes it so hard to really grasp or to basically get a handle on it. Yeah, but because you talk about values now, yeah, something that people have, sometimes very hard to extract, but they definitely have it. It's like beliefs, behaviors in an organization. And culture, also like company culture, is very hard to describe. But every one of you that comes into a company, into any type of organization, yeah, it takes only a few days and you have the first feeling of culture. Yeah, is it hierarchical or not? Is it more compromise-driven? Is it very collaborative or very competitive? And so on and so on. Yeah, you get a feeling of culture, even though it's nowhere it's written down. Yeah, there's not a handbook that says, well, we are collaborative or whatever. Yeah, so culture is something that we feel and it really makes up, it's made out of values, beliefs, behaviors. And obviously data culture now is talking about effective and ethical use of data. Yeah? That's basically the goal here, and what do we want to use it for? Typically, what do we use data for? It's for decision making, or we want to improve processes, maybe even automate them, and innovation. Yeah, maybe finding new business models, new ways to monetize data. That's the three main areas we see data is actually being used in a company context. So that's data culture. Maybe two aspects here. First of all, I'm a very strong believer, we will never become a data-driven enterprise without a strong data culture. And many organizations have it now in their business strategies. They say, we want to become a data-driven company or a data-driven enterprise. But without a data culture, this will never happen. And second aspect, it's really about now the people aspect of things. That's what it's really about here. That's data culture. Another aspect is data culture obviously is part of the company culture. Yeah, so whatever we think how we could maybe influence a data culture, it's always dependent on an company culture. Yeah, so this cannot run against each other. Yeah, so if you have a certain company culture, data culture must be part of it. That's, I think, one important takeaway here. And another one is, if you now start to think about it, it's really, we cannot commission a data culture, or we cannot prescribe it. Yeah? We cannot stand up, maybe even as a CEO. Yeah? We cannot stand up and say, people, starting from today, we have a great data culture in our organization. This will not work. Yeah? Trust me, I've seen it. And we cannot turn it on and off. Yeah? We cannot say, well, now, yeah, from now on, yeah, we turn it on and maybe we turn it off again. This is not how culture works. Yeah? We can only influence it. This is how we change a culture. Basically, what we want to change is values, beliefs, behavior of people. This is our goal now. And we cannot, basically order them to have a different value now, of different beliefs. Yeah? But we can influence them. And that's what we really have to do. Now, the big question I always get is, most people say, okay, up to here, got it. Yeah? We believe you. Actually, you're right. I hope you say the same, but anyway. But now is the big question, what can we do? Yeah, this is great, but doesn't really help. Now we have to go back to our companies and have to do something if we believe this is right. What can we do? And we actually developed an answer for that. Yeah, to be as concrete as possible, we created a data culture framework. Yeah? After many years of working with companies on data culture, we basically sat down at BARC and said, well, okay, what are the key takeaways here? What are the key aspects companies should tackle when they want to improve the data culture in their organization? And we boiled it down to 6 aspects that I would like to present to you. And that's the framework. And we say, you can actually work on these 6 aspects. And if you do that, you will influence it. So you will improve the data culture in your organization. I just want to say it again. You cannot buy it. Yeah? You cannot order a few consultants and say, okay, do a project here, and when you're gone in 3 months, then we have a good data culture. This is not how this works. Yeah? You have to influence it in many ways. And these are the 6 aspects you can actually work on. And you have to work on. Yeah? Best would be in all 6 dimensions, all 6 aspects. We have 3 facilitators, so they have to be there. Yeah? They create like something like the framework or the foundation, how data culture would basically improve or flourish, if you want. And we have 3 enablers. Yeah? So they would accelerate anything you want to do in data culture. And what I would like to do in the remaining time is basically have a short spotlight on each of the 6 aspects so you have a better idea what I'm talking about. Obviously, time is not enough to look at each one in detail. That would take probably several hours. So it's only like 1 or 2 aspects that I think are pretty important for each one. So you get an idea what I'm thinking here. So using this framework to improve data culture in your organization. That's the idea. Let's start with data strategy. So what's the relationship between data strategy and data culture? I already showed the car, that's one. But there are 2 things I think that are very important to understand here. First of all is any data strategy should have a data culture component. Yeah? It's very basic, but most of the data strategies I see don't have that. Yeah? So any data strategy should have, let's call it a people component. Yeah? They should be aware, how do we treat the people? How do we make sure that people understand our data strategy, that they get able to be working with data and analytics and so on. So basically, how do we treat leadership, governance, access, communication, literacy with data in our organization? So that should be really an important part of it. And the second thing really important to understand is that data culture limits your data strategy. You can have the glorious ideas you want in your data strategy. If the culture is not right, it will not work anyway. Yeah, so you can only define a data strategy in the limits of the data culture you have. Otherwise, you will produce something that I've seen so often, are these shiny slides, and then in reality, nothing happens because you don't have the culture to do it. Yeah? So understanding that the culture limits your data strategy, I think will also help you to produce or to set up or design a data strategy that actually realistically will work in the end in the organization. Data leadership, super important, has a really big influence on culture. And what do we mean here? Just by one thing, is inspiring a data-driven mindset is maybe the leadership task we have here. And if you think about a concrete action you would like to have, then it's really leading by example. Because that is something that an organization, people in an organization really feel. And we are now really in the feeling part of things because we are talking about culture. Yeah. So if the CEO stands up and says, we will be data-driven, that's our new strategy. And from now on, data plays a super important role. And then it's not leading by example, meaning, he or she is not using any data, to, for example, promote any new plan in the organization or to take any decisions or to explain decisions to everyone, then everyone will very quickly understand that this is just talk, blah, blah. And we don't have to change anyway, because it's a strategy, it's on a great slide, and they talk about it in the boardroom, but do I have to change in my daily job? Do I have to become data-driven now? Maybe yes, maybe no, but people observe that. Yeah? And if they see leadership just talking but not doing anything, they say, oh, great, yeah, let's let them talk. Biggest topic for me is I don't have to change. That's great. Yeah. So leading by example means top-down, really promoting data. And this short proverb here I think is great. It's also attributed to someone. No one really knows where this comes from. Yeah. But if this is your leader, and basically they tell you, well, you can tell me whatever you like, but I trust only God. Yeah. And if you want something from me, like money, resources, time, a new job, whatever, you have to bring data. It's very simple. Yeah, whatever you want, bring me the data to support your claim, and then we can talk about it. Yeah, this alone will change behavior in an organization. Yeah, this will get people really data-driven. Yeah, if this is not happening, then leadership is failing, and it will not change any culture in the organization. There are many ways, obviously, also. Yeah, and the top-down influence, how we call it, is super important. And I have one more example from you later in the data access piece, because there it often plays a super important role. But for the sake of time, let's move on. Data governance, obviously for many organizations, an important topic. We see many, many more projects, initiatives being started on governance. Some are more out of, let's say, a compliance, more out of fear in a way, yeah? There's so much legislation going on. Now the newest one would be the EU AI Act. Yeah, that has some influence now on the AI teams. And so governance can come out of fear in a way, that you have to want to be compliant or have to be compliant and want to do something here. Or others really come out of a more positive spirit. They say, okay, if data is an asset now, and we want to be data-driven, and want to generate more value from data, then we should govern this asset in a way that it actually can produce the value. And that's why, for example, data quality is typically one of the most important aspects of any data governance initiative. And how does it now influence data culture? Obviously, the most important thing here is now to find the right balance. And that's not so easy, and that's the task for any organization. The balance between being too strict, that's the negative side of things. Yeah? If you're basically too strict, you have too many policies, too many rules. Yeah? You have you're creating kind of fear in the organization that someone is doing something wrong because they are now not following the AI Act, or they are breaking any GDPR rules or whatever. Then what you're creating is an atmosphere where people are not open to use data. Yeah? They are actually afraid. Yeah, they think, well, I don't do this data project because I'm like one foot is in jail already. If I just think about all this regulation, that's our company. And typically people tell me if the lawyers get involved internally, then you are basically already too far on the governance side, on the negative side. Yeah? The other thing would be to have not enough governance. This is also negative in a way. This is also something you don't want, because we all know what happens then. You end up in chaos. Yeah, because everyone's doing whatever they like, or we call it anarchy. Yeah? And we don't want that, because then we all understand this will also not be good for our organization. So finding this balance is the key thing. It can only be done individually for each organization, but it's super important. And that's the key task, actually. Yeah? Having enough governance, so you comply, but you also have the wanted effects, like better data quality. On the other hand, not be too strict, because then you kill any data initiatives, and then basically the culture is in a way that people say, oh, keep away with data projects. Yeah, that's not something I want to get involved with. So that's a very delicate balance in a way, but that's the important thing. And there's one more thing I would like to present to you is that we see more in our organizations that now, as part of their data governance, they actually take in data culture. And I would like to show you a result of a survey we ran last year. And we asked this question, who's actually responsible for your company's data culture? And what we could see here is, this is the result. Yeah, so there were different options like dedicated person, management, maybe single persons out of management, individuals like the CEO, the CFO, or maybe fragment. And what we could observe in this research is that best-in-class companies, so companies that use data already in an advanced way, and laggards, so companies that are pretty behind in using data, have very, very big differences. It's very seldom actually in such a research piece to observe this big differences. But here it's very, very clear. So best-in-class companies, 1/3, already have a dedicated person or team responsible for data culture. And you see what's happening in the laggards. Yeah? Like 30% say it's fragmented, so some people, maybe you don't even know who, or another 30% say, well, there's no dedicated responsibility. Yeah, so it's not a topic of interest in a way. And this is a big difference. And we actually see more and more companies that have people that even have now data culture in their functions, in their titles. Yeah, so we have now data culture directors or data culture managers and so on. And this is really growing. It's really interesting to observe. It's happening a lot in the Central European countries. But I now observe this also in the UK. It's happening more and more. And this is good. Often they sit in the CDO office, so under the data officer. And there's a dedicated team just looking at culture in the organization, which I think is super important. We can see it here, that it's really best practice. Yeah, leading companies do that. They have dedicated people looking at data culture. And I would say that's also part of data governance, maybe a part that many organizations don't really think about right now. Let's look at the fourth aspect here, that data access. Yeah, that seems to be a bit strange on this chart at first. This at least the reaction I get often, because it seems like to be a very narrow, maybe even technology piece. Yeah? So isn't data access something very special or very niche or very technical? It is in a way, but it's super important. And actually, when we ask organizations which of these 6 aspects are the ones that are most relevant to you to improve data culture, data access typically comes on first or second. Yeah? So it is definitely a big, big topic. So what is the driver for this? Or what is the reason why data access is so important? And this is one single observation here is that any company I work with or I see is really suffering from data silos. And as we all know, data silos are basically an expression of organizational silos. And that's why it's a cultural thing. If we create organizational silos, often we create data silos, and then we cannot have access to that data. Because obviously they are protected. People say, no, this is my data, not yours. And before you get access, you have to fill out these forms, and then maybe some board will approve in maybe a few months or weeks that maybe you get access, but maybe not, because it's my data, and I control it, and maybe it even is a source for my power in this organization. And I would say it's maybe the or one of the biggest inhibitors of digital transformation. This is a pretty bold statement because digital transformation goes way beyond data and analytics. It's basically doing everything. But maybe you start to think about it. Maybe you can disagree, but I think this is really a fundamental topic in a lot of organizations. And now that's a question I get often, how can we break this up? What can we actually do? And it's actually a matter of a data access principle you have. And there are 2 ways to treat data in an organization. Maybe you've heard about this. One is on a need-to-know basis, and one is on the right-to-know basis. And need-to-know is very simple. You only get access to the data that you need to know in your specific job role. And then somebody defines what you need to know, and if you need anything else, you have to basically apply for access. Right-to-know is the absolute opposite. That means everyone in an organization has the right to know everything. All data is open to anyone, unless the data we close down. We lock it up. That would be our secret data. Maybe HR data. No, I don't give that to anyone. Then there are certain data points that I would say, hey, this is something that we have to have restricted access. But that's the exception to the rule. And if you think about it on the need-to-know side, the exception to the rule is that you get access because you have to apply for it. You have to follow a process. Someone has to approve that. And the other side would be basically make everything open and lock away what you want to have locked away. The fundamental thing to understand is here, because often people say, oh my God, this is super dangerous. Isn't that now putting all we talked about, security, privacy, as number one important topic, isn't putting that all in danger? The answer is no. The level of data protection is exactly the same. There's no difference. Secret data remains secret. Only a few people have access. Personal data is still treated in a very special way. Not everyone has access. But the culture is completely different. If you walk into an organization and they say, yes, you have access to all data, unless there are a few things that need special permission, then the culture of using data obviously is completely different than you walk into an organization and they say, well, you have access to these few columns in this table, and if you want anything else, here's the form, or here's the process. Maybe you can apply for it. So it's a completely different way to exercise culture in an organization, obviously. And many organizations have realized that. We actually obviously did a survey on that, and we asked companies, okay, what do you do and what do you think is actually valuable here? So, and this is the answer. What data access or which data access principle is prevalent in your organizations? And roughly 2/3 say, well, it's on the need-to-know basis. And then we asked, okay, but what do you think is actually most beneficial to your organization? And then 60%, well, right to know would be better. So we can see in the data, not everyone is convinced yet, like I am, that the right to know is the best way to go, but at least the majority is already thinking about, yes, that's how we should move forward. And we all know it's sometimes a bit of a lengthy process to change that, but we see even very, very large organizations starting that journey. We see people responsible for data in organizations, even the largest ones, that say, yes, we need to change this. We want to promote data usage in our organization, so we need to do something. We have to create open marketplaces. We have to create open access to all data on a right-to-know basis, and we have to change our thinking and our principles. That's what people really start to do. So I'm projecting that we see more and more companies moving on a right-to-know basis, because it's really fundamental for data culture. This is something that is really influencing culture in an organization. Let's take a look at literacy. Obviously, data literacy is not only about data. Data literacy means all skills that people in an organization need to work with data. So that means they need to understand it. What is data? Where is it? How can I access it? What can I do with it? How can I analyze it? How can I visualize it? And how can I communicate it? Which is another topic here. So literacy actually should be pretty broad. And the second important aspect here is, from my point of view, that it also has to tackle all levels of an organization. Right now, what we see often in organizations is that the experts are being trained. So your business analysts or people in controlling that are already pretty data savvy, they get now trained to become data scientists, which is great. Please do that. But don't forget the other 95% of people in an organization that should also receive some kind of training. And obviously now this has to be dedicated or fitting to the roles they have. So obviously we cannot have like a data scientist training to everyone in the organization. Wouldn't make sense at all. But then, where to find data, how to use it maybe in a simpler way, then really interesting to many, many more people. And so this is something that we see, that now the literacy initiatives are evolving to really be more specific to roles, to include more people in an organization, with the ultimate goal to have everyone data literate, everyone in the organization. And that's something where we need to often change the educational thinking, the programs, what we do, and so on. And maybe one aspect, if I'm now involved in data culture initiatives, that there seems to be one group of people in an organization that really needs special treatment. You know who that is? That always comes. And it's not the top management. Just to be clear, because often they are very clear. They understand the value, they understand the strategy, they even hand out the strategy. But who's really, really important to get also educated, but also to draw into any data culture initiatives, is the middle management. Because this is typically the main problem. If you look at it very simply in 3 layers, you have top management, middle management, and everyone else. And typically in everyone else, you find so many data enthusiasts. You have so many people in your organizations who want to do something with data, and they are already often doing something, maybe if they allow to or not. And then we see top management often saying, yes, data is something that we need to use more, that we create new business strategies around here. But the middle management, that's where the real problem is, because that is the place where resources are allocated. These are the people that say, yes, you get now time and money to do your data project or not. And that's really the problem we see. And we see now more and more people that are engaged with data culture in organizations. They start now with specific programs for middle management. To get them, first of all, really educated. So they get an understanding. What's really going on here? And what's this AI topic beyond ChatGPT? So how can we actually use it? How can we basically support our goals as a middle manager to use data analytics? And secondly, you also have to basically get them excited about it. It's not only about education. It's getting them excited, say, yes, we not only understand it, we want to do something here. We understand this is something that brings us forward, something that is helpful for the company and our career. This is the important piece here. So we see a shift here, literacy getting really broader in terms of what is being educated, getting broader in who is getting educated, and then have sometimes specific programs, often specifically for management. And one thing I just wanted to mention here, things like this podcast is also helping to educate people in a company. I see more and more culture managers putting on, for example, internal podcasts to educate people. And this is something I run now for 2 years. So if you want to take a look here or listen, I have now more than 100 conversations with people that drive data culture forward in organizations. So there's a lot of stories, a lot of basically knowledge and experience to learn from. And this talking about it, listening to something, get educated, now ties into the last point here, data communication. And this is the aspect I find mostly underrepresented. This is often the aspect that's being least thought about. But if you think about the influence on culture, I would argue it's maybe one of the most important ones. So there's a bit of a mismatch right now, and that's why I think it's one of the most important ones. So what's communication in a very, very small nutshell? It's the thing that we need to tell stories with data, and we need to tell the success stories about data. So what do I mean with that? First of all, data communication in this first sense that I think many will have is that they are thinking about, okay, data storytelling, data visualization. We need to basically enable people to tell stories with data, because that really helps to communicate data. It's not this boring diagram or something, but it's a story. It's showing, hey, look at this data, and I can see this development, and that means, and this is what we should do. And this is all based on data. Then data comes to life and creates value, and then what we always want to do with data, in the end, we want to have an effect. So we want people to do something or change their behavior. And we can reach this goal much better if we tell stories with data than if we just send a report. So that's one side of things. I think this is well understood. I mean, data storytelling has been around now for, 15 years maybe, as something that people are concerned about. The other side of data communication is equally important. We have to tell stories about data and analytics. So what's that? Remember, we want to influence the culture in an organization. We want to influence people. And how do we do that? A good way to do that would be to tell success stories. Like every week or every month, communicate to everyone in the organizations what great things have been achieved or have been done with data and analytics in our organization in the last week, in the last month, in the last year. And then lift people to a podium. Say, hey, look here, Tim, he has analyzed this data and he found this, and now we have better customer service, or we have less output or waste or whatever the process is, doesn't matter. But just lift them to a podium and say, look, this is a role model. Role models are something we look up to, and then we try to do maybe something similar. Yeah? So if your management goes on stage and says, well, I have a special award to give out, yeah, and the special recognition goes to Tim because he did great stuff with data, then you start to influence behavior in an organization. Then people say, hey, that's pretty cool. He gets attention. He does pretty cool stuff. Maybe I should look into this data topic too. And this is how we change culture. And this is how we basically create followership, because most of your people will be very, they will sit back and say, well, let's see how this data topic plays out. Yeah? I mean, we hear the talk, but let's wait. That's typically the majority of people. It's very human-like behavior. Everyone's doing that. But once you see things changing, they say, hey, they get awards. They are being recognized. Maybe there is even a boost for their career. Then people start to change. They start to follow basically the trend in the organization. And that's what we want to try to achieve with data communication. Many more things to talk about here, but for the sake of time, I leave it with that. I just want to invite you at the end here. Data communication is also about creating communities, which, by the way, is a super difficult topic in any organization, but that would be a talk on itself. But communities, this is a European data community. We assemble them once a year in Munich. It's not a German company and a German event. It's an international event, English language. So maybe something also to consider to join that in Munich. And in a few weeks, we also have an online edition just to basically warm up for the main event in Munich. And now summing it up, two more aspects here. One is changing a culture is a marathon, not a sprint. Yeah? So that you have to be really aware of. Yeah? People are not changing overnight their behavior, typically. At least not in such a topic. Second aspect is investments pay off. Yeah? So if you are now going back and say, hey, CDO, I should be the data culture manager now, and I want to bring this topic forward because this is maybe more important than spending the next $1 million on some technology piece, then you can maybe back up this with a bit of data here, because we see in the survey that people or companies see a very positive effect here. Improved decision-making, continuous process improvements, cost reductions. Yeah. So all this, people say, yes, we could achieve this while or with improving data culture. And I know it's Halloween, so I thought I'd end this with this. Yeah. Basically looking at the topic again, and just want you to remind that data culture eats data strategy for breakfast. Thank you.
Very cool. Lots of stuff to absorb. I saw people taking lots of notes here as well. Carsten, thank you so much. We have time for maybe 2 questions now, and then we also have questions later if you have. What are your questions? I told Carsten that there would be plenty.
Last one.
Don't let me down.
Hi, thanks. So you presented a slide with the best in class basically having a data culture officer or someone who is responsible, either a person or a team. Under what kinds of circumstances does that actually work? And what kind of responsibilities, maybe traits that person or the team may have so that it actually works. Basically what I'm getting at is that culture, as you've presented, is not something that one person can change. So I think just giving that, outsourcing that to one person is probably the wrong message as a takeaway from this talk.
Maybe yes, maybe no. Yeah, I think assigning responsibility shows that people care. But you're right. Yeah, we cannot say, oh, now we have someone responsible, so we are fine. Yeah, you're right. So typically, these people understand their role in a way that they want to ignite a lot of people all across the organization. Yeah, so what are they actually doing? Yeah, basically, they run the literacy programs. Yeah, so basically, they look into the education side of things. Secondly, most important, they run the communication side of things. So successful data culture management often come out of a marketing PR background. Yeah? So people that know how to communicate. And that's often the most important role. And what they do then is they've tried, for example, to create communities. Yeah? And they create communities with the data enthusiasts that you find all across the organization. Yeah? And they try to enable them to bring the data message and enable them to drive it forward. But then the data culture manager also have a very important role, basically, if you look at the management or the top management level. Basically, they have to create the attention also there to data culture initiatives, to the importance of the topic, to also the importance of resources and money to support data and analytics. That's often also a role that they have. So I think you're right. We cannot say, hey, I signed someone, now the topic is solved. But I think it's good to have someone or have people that drive it forward, that coordinate things, that also give visibility of this super important topic in the context of a CDO or maybe even a board or a C-level executives. That's typically the role. And if you don't have people dedicated to it, then often the data officer plays that role. And they more and more understand that it's super important to also think about culture.
Very cool. Thank you for the comprehensive answer. I would suggest, if you have questions, please table them for later. Towards the end of the event, we will have everybody back up on stage for a quick Q&A, and then we can go into more topics. Also, Carsten, you will be around today.
Yeah.
So make sure you connect with Carsten during the break or the breaks, also at the evening event, and then you can discuss the data culture a little bit more. I fully agree. It's such an important thing. It's without culture, the best thing will fail. Yeah. Carsten, thank you so much.